years, and we've got some that make a very small amount. So this is funded, and it's already in the budget. Really, we already have something for this. I'm really for the 750 plus a 3%, 1.65 minutes. Thank you, Ms. Kim.
Thank you. And this tax, I'm going to bring this tax millage to you in a resolution, the first council meeting in September. I will have to advertise and notice if you want to go up in millage, heaven forbid, I'm just throwing that out there. But if I will have to advertise the tax levy and just need some sort of indication if we're going to leave it the same. The resolution, once it's adopted, hopefully the first council meeting in September, that'll be done the same time as you adopt the tax roll from the tax assessor's office. We'll hand out discs for those, or we make an email, and I think they're probably be too large to email those. But we'll ask that you approve that the first council meeting in September. Once you approve that resolution for the tax levy, we'll get that in the paper as well. So I just wanted to bring that to you and just discuss a little bit of why we've got what we've got in the general fund, which will lead off the mayor as he talks about.
Yeah, one other question. So there's no misunderstanding. This year is not necessarily a mandate like PERS. Next year they may not get 3%. Is that correct? If the millage doesn't work out, they may not get a 3%. This doesn't tell these people in the Fireman's Living Fund, you're now like PERS. We're going to guarantee
this. This is for 1 year only, and it's an annual decision that can be made.
Thank you, Kim. Before we get started, I also wanted to thank everyone on the council and the budget committee. Those meetings are long and not always the most exciting topics, go line by line, but particularly the three on the budget committee gave up hours and hours of their time and income and everything else to be there, and it was a good process, and it's something I think is beneficial to both the process in general and ultimately will benefit the citizens of Tupelo, and that we have a more streamlined budget. Want to especially thank Kim and Lynn's not here.
Lynn Jackson.
Jackson. I've said it over and over that we've got the best financial team in the state of Mississippi, and absolutely think that's true. I think we have the Michael Jordan and Larry Bird of budget and accounting right here in Tupelo. I don't know which one's Larry Bird and which one's Michael Jordan. I also think that Don Lewis, he's a great taskmaster. He keeps us on track, and I would call him the Muhammad Ali of task management. He certainly got us where we're going. And last but not least, I think we've made a great team. But that being the council and the administration and the department heads. I think that the strength and dedication of our team can only be rivaled, Coach Palmer, by the 1986 Chicago Bears, and I think that what we're going to do is the Super Bowl shuffle of municipal budgeting. Just like last year, we have got a budget that includes no new debt, does not dip into the city's reserve funds for operations, and contains no new tax or fee increases. This year, in addition to that, though, we have a budget surplus, which will be the first budget surplus since the fiscal year of 2008. So I think that we're on the right track. The proposed budget adequately meets the needs of our city and does not waste any taxpayer money and saves funds where possible. So with that, we've gone over the revenue, which comprises the first 5 pages of the budget packet, and that would get us to the 5th page of the budget packet. Now, what I had intended on doing, I'm not sure if everyone was in here, What I had intended on doing was just go, page by page, department by department, and just take any questions or discuss anything whenever the need arises. The first one, though, on page 5 there is the city council. That page, just page 5. This is the council budget. This is just what was submitted by the council to budget and accounting. We haven't made any changes that were not requested by the council. And I was hoping to get an agreement where I never suggested any changes to the council budget. Got the same return to the administration budget. That's something just to think about. But is there any? This is again what you requested, and does reflect a 2.2% overall savings in the council's budget as compared to last year.
Okay. On travel, we had tossed that around a lot. I know we left it like it was, and I talked to you. I don't know if I'm not related, but I know we didn't use probably around 10, 11 last year. And I didn't go on a trip last year because comments made about do we go or not go or spending too much money or whatever. But I had the conversation with Mark. I feel like we all were represented by different wards, by different people. Some of these meetings might not appeal to some of my colleagues, some of the places. But like I mentioned him, I feel like the one that want to go and they feel like it's beneficial to them in the city, they should be allowed to go. And I agree to let 15,000 stay in, but I also said that not to the point that we need to add some of them to go some of these places. We need to do that. I don't want to cut any of my colleagues short from going anywhere. And I want to be the same way. But I don't want to go, I'm not going to stand in any of y'all's way. So I agree to 15,000, but it might come to the point we might not need 15,000, but we might need a few thousand more at some point during this year. So I would hope y'all would keep that in consideration that we do that.
Okay, Kim and I, go ahead and admit.
Last year, we ran a real tight budget because when the budget was done, some of the training and experiences for the council weren't included in that because the National League of Cities was not included because we had for about 4 years we weren't members of the National League of Cities, and Ms. Jennings says, I feel like any of these training experiences are helpful and make us better counsel. And I was just wondering, I noticed 2000 actual budget under travel, it's 16,000 for 2013, the actual, and what are we working with 15,000 this year? When we were it was running kind of short on monies last year because we had not included those extra things in that. So was that consideration given? I know that last year we went to Seattle, Washington, which was a lot further than probably in these other meetings that we held in Austin, Texas, Washington, or vice versa. So were those things looked at as we compile that final figure?
The membership in the League of Cities actually came out of the administration's budget. As far as that
It's gonna be probably only $1,000 over, is all we're gonna be this year. Once we pay, for the entire MML, we've got the registration and the, rooms to go on the council's budget, and by the time that's done, we'll be about $1,000 over, so.
Was all town costs included in that?
The expense has been included. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, when Kim and I sit down and went over this, council budget, professional service, the first line item, we had $30,000 in there. We only used, less than $5,000. And she and I talked, and we lowered that to 25,000. And then you drop down to the travel, we talked about upping that travel. But to go to all the MML functions in the state of Mississippi, and what council members do not go or do not stay the whole time. Kim and I discussed at $15,000, we feel like if 2 council members would like to go to the National League Conference, then we could go over slightly, depending on how much it is, because we don't know what it is yet. She said that if we do go over a little, like 2 years ago, we went to 16, we can always take that out of professional service. So instead of raising that travel up and not using it at all, I think 16,000 is a good number to fit in there. If more than 2 people wishes to go, then certainly the council can take a look at it. I don't want to hinder anyone to go. We're all elected, we all represent the city, and we all have a board to represent. So it is a council's decision. But that's how, sitting down with Kim and I, this is how we determine 15,000. And also, if you drop down to office rental and office equipment maintenance, we had $4,000 in one line and no dollar amount in another. And the one that we had $4,000 in, we weren't using. The one we had $3,000 or nothing, we were using $2,000. So she and I decided to combine them both and then lower the $4,000 to $3,000 to cover both line items. And that's how we determine the equipment maintenance and equipment rental.
Just as far as my 2 cents on the travel, that's just the prerogative of the council, whatever you want to put in there. I do think that the National League of Cities Conference in Washington in March would be something that's one of I guess that's the only out-of-state trip that I'm planning on taking this coming year. But I think that it would be beneficial for the city. That's an opportunity to meet with our entire federal delegation and different agencies and entities up there, particularly as much as we'll be dealing with FEMA for the next several years. I think it would be good for at least this year to have a good presence there. But again, that's just a problem with the council there. Are there any other questions or concerns or comments as far as page 5 of the council portion of the budget?
I just want to make this comment, which I know that our child schools are used to going to workshops and better myself, but it would be good if all the councilmen would take advantage of some of the training, because you never know everything. You still have something new to learn. And there's a lot of helpful information that will make you a better councilman if you attend some of these training sessions, because we have a lot of good representation from all over the state, and I think it's very beneficial. I'm speaking as a school teacher. I know other people see things a little differently, but I think the more training you get, the more the more, you would do better at your job, because it's just about every kind of experience that you can receive at these training sessions.
Speaking of students, we have got, I don't know if we're playing hooky today or we're skipping school, but 5 of Oxford, Mississippi's finest young people have come over here to join us today. And we're very proud to have you here today. They were supposed to be here around noon to visit with me today or 12:30, but good friends of mine from Oxford. Y'all want to say your name, everybody? This is Don and John Abbott. That's as far as Don and John Abbott Jones on the end. Let's have you all in Tupelo today. It gets us to page 6, which is city court. Page 6 and 7, city court portion of the budget. You'll see a lot of changes in this and a pretty substantial reduction. You've got 15.7% reduction in personnel expenditure and a total department reduction of 14.3%. That is caused by several things, including the retirement and realignment after Captain Montgomery retired, but also, and probably more substantially, the transferring of a bailiff position. The officer still at city court, but the position itself was transferred from city court to the police department. So it's the reduction in this department is really a wash in the overall budget as far as that goes. The other thing that you'll see, there's a big reduction for the computer expenses. That's what line is that? Computer maintenance 635004. That is a big reduction there at city court, but you'll see when we get to budget and accounting, that is basically absorbed through budget and accounting. But that's the new system, and everything will be operated out of budget and accounting rather than there. So while it appears to be a substantial savings there, it's really in the overall budget of wash. So we've got not just 1 but 2 representatives from city board. I think they do a good grilling of some sort. If anybody wants to make them over the coals a little bit,
I want to explain line by line.
y'all, I do want to recognize John Knight. He gave, for those that sat through department head meetings, he gave probably the best department head report that I've ever seen. When we got to the city court, he said, I can't remember which street, but basically his report was, he said, the work program's on my column. Thank you. Really good. But are there any questions on, the city court, as you all know, is not, it's a little different than other departments, and that's providing a service to the citizens, part of the justice system here in Tupelo.
Is that travel going to be adequate? Y'all know me.
Yes, sir. I've got to go to the MML in September to do my clerkship training. And other than that, I will have to go to the spring session that they do, because there's not any actual hours that are given for that. So I should just have to go to that one training in September.
That's required by
Yes, that's
statute.
required.
Larry Montgomery was official solo expired. MML, so I wonder when Mr. Knight will be official.
He can sing.
Sing too?
I think you're fine.
We got a microphone. Okay, well that gets us to page 8, which is Nothing really to talk about, we'll move on to page
Oh.
10.
We're gonna cut your salary in half.
This is the executive, function, administration here. There are a couple of major, so to speak, changes in lines 600,001 and 600,022. Those are professional services and legal services. Last year, pursuant to the budget compromise in the in-house legal department, we kept $60,000 in legal services for outside legal work. This year, I don't know if I brought it with me. I think that about $23,000 had been spent, and a large portion of that was spent for work that was performed prior to October 1st of last year. So basically, what we've submitted there is to flip the legal services and professional services, the two line items there. So you see those changes reflected. There's big percentages, but the changes there do, just for benefit of media or public, do intend on seeking the authority for the same contract with Bishop McNutt Sam that we had last year for outside legal work. But when that need does come up, which it does from time to time, I kind of mentioned the travel budget is requested to be increased there. This past year, I attended the U.S. Conference of Mayors seminar in Dallas, and along with Councilwoman Davis, the National League of Cities conference in Seattle. I don't intend on going to the National League of Cities conference in Austin this year, or back to the U.S. Conference of Mayors. The two city trips that I intended on going this year are back to the MML and then to the National League of Cities Conference in March. And, you know, I should have said a few minutes ago, but I do think that it would be good for us to have a substantial presence there. I think that, the stuff with FEMA and Lehman, I think, we're just going to have to be proactive there. I probably will also have to go back to Jackson, and I would think that council members, those that could, if that need arises in the legislative session there, we would need to go back. The other need for the travel budget to increase Mr. Logan's travel for the seminars, for hearing in Jackson, for be like the North League. He has to go to Jackson at least twice, if not 3 times already. That travel is out of this budget. Otherwise, the budget is flat there. There's no new positions.
So, Matt, is that going to be, when you saying the term, is that be added for the amount? The reason I'm saying that, I feel like we saved quite a bit by having him on board. I would hate to see him not take advantage of something because they feel like it's not enough money there, he might not save it. I don't want to cut him short on anything because sometimes people don't want to rock the boat, but he don't save us what he's been doing. I would hate to see him like, maybe I should have went here, but you don't want to say anything. Money. So that 10,000 ain't gonna be adequate enough.
I think so. We contemplated, MML, the legal track is a little different than the council and elected officials track, just like the clerk's track is different down there, but contemplated him going there and getting his continuing legal education credit there, then whatever travel, and then if Mr. Lewis like M&L or anything like that, or fit in, that would be covered under that. But yeah, I think it would be adequate for them.
Mayor, I'd like to make a comment related to, being low and, we were supposed to go back within a year and look at, this idea you suggested. I think it's been excellent. And it's proven to be effective. So I want to thank you for doing that. And, it saved us some money, and looked like we've been able to have close contact with our legal representative, with him being here in the, city hall.
Yes, ma'am. We plan on doing a presentation at some point during this process. Certainly, we'll request that the in-house legal continue. I think that we'll be able to show savings in excess of $200,000 for the taxpayers during this year. And then, like I say, the service Ben's just done a remarkable job, in my opinion. But we'll do whatever the council wishes as far as a presentation on that. We are getting that prepared now.
Just for someone would ask, and I'm sure it's justified, but we have a $6,000 budget or request for advertising, and apparently we haven't, that somewhat has been under budgeted. Can you give me just a reasoning for that?
Well, there's several things. We have to, every time there's statute or ordinances, all that has to run. We probably had more than we have in the future, but all the turnover, advertising for departments, whatever, all of that. We've had more this past year.
Right.
We had more than in the past, and we just kind of, that's one that we might not need, that we've gone over so far. Is there anything that has to be advertised for the city? And that's something we, at least Councilman Lynn Bryan had discussed, is getting some sort of, what would you call it,
Put an ad in the paper, so if it runs every single day, departments, public works has got it on Tuesday, and so-and-so's got it on whatever. Just continually, somebody can immediately go to whatever page of the paper and open it up, and at the bottom or whatever. It's got something going on.
But it's just kind of a safeguard from that we went over this year.
Thank you.
Anything else on pages 8 and 9, the executive budget?
I would like to see us, I know, other cities, have some type of little, button and trinket to give out at meetings and things. And I know that, Convention and Business Bureau does some of this, but, I wish at one time when I first started, on the council, they had, a Tupelo button that we would give out various places and, give to people who come into our city. And I wish some kind of way that could be included in it. That would be for a small amount, but I noticed that a lot of cities are giving them out at the meetings and things. I might supposed to have something.
Just probably have to go through CBB on that, but I'll have to know. But you'll have a good opportunity to twist his arm tomorrow at some point.
Just tell them we won't take it.
That's right. You don't approve his budget until he puts that there. Let's see. That gets us to page 10 and 11 for the museum. The museum, wanted to point out, I don't know that, I guess it's brought over Park and Recreation, but the museum did a really good job finding savings, at Don's request, he went every department head on numerous occasions and really challenged them to, find savings and to buy into the culture of savings that we're trying to promote. And they did a good job at the museum. They have reduced personnel by 10%, particularly part-time assistants. 50% reduction in professional services and a 50% reduction in their advertising budget for a total reduction for the operation of the museum of 1.8%. Any questions, concerns, comments about the museum, which is page 10 and 11? That gets us to pages 12 and 13, which are budget accounting. And again, I can't brag on them enough. They do a phenomenal job, in my opinion. They just really are proactive in planning ahead and have done a wonderful job on the budget. The changes here reflect the combination of the clerk and CFO duties and pay. The savings there create that realignment does create an unfilled position that will be filled and needs to be filled and is budgeted for. But the savings from that realignment save the equivalent of a salary position in budget accounting. As I mentioned, under the city court, their line item for the computer, you'll see line 730002. The increase here. They basically, and I don't know the figures are exactly the same, but the dip in the city court is reflected there by that increase. That's the changing of the operating system, and that all being done through budget accounting. But hopefully, and particularly in the court, it's supposed to, be more efficient. The ability to collect fines and everything else is supposed to be increased. If nothing else, in budget accounting, if you have any questions, we should be able to answer. All right, going to human resources, page 14. The proposed budget for human resources does include a $5,000 raise for the director's position. That $5,000 is reflected on 410001, and will bring her salary closer in line with the department heads. The pay increase there is budget neutral for the human resources department, and being funded through a reduction of some of the part-time help through the HR budget and a 50% reduction in professional services. The budget does maintain the Planet City program, which I think is very positive for the city, and I think it's the right thing for us to do as a city for the young people. The total reduction for the HR department is 2.1% savings for a taxpayer from 2014 budget. Any questions or concerns on the HR?
The salary for the administration salary, what is the recommended salary for our director of human resources?
It would take her salary from 55,620 to 61,176. Would be a 10% raise, basically.
So that a salary could be brought in line with at least the other department head salary is still a little off, but I think you have put forward effort to try to raise it, but I feel strongly that we need to do this because it's just not, does not look good on our record for one department head salary to be way less than the other department heads. I just want to make that comment. And, I just feel like if it's ever investigated and that is looked at, we just gonna put us in a bad position, compare us and the other agencies who will see this. It doesn't look good to, for there's the, one salary be down and all of the up to where it should be. You said it's 61,176.
Yes, ma'am. That will get us to page 14, no, excuse me, page 15, which is development services, page 15 and 16. The reductions that you see under salaries, which are all under personnel, those are all through what we did back several months ago when we did the 1% raise. As part of that process, we transferred the city engineer position. He's still employed with the city, he's still performing the work, but that change is why you see those percentages there under salaries. The budget as a whole is pretty much the same as last year, with the savings of 10% from 2014's revised budget. But I did want to point out, when you go back to the 2013 budget, go to the proposed 2015 budget, you're looking at a reduction of approximately $40,000 in operating expenses for that department. And, I think just sort of an example of saving, what we can, where we can, when we can, and just takes time sometimes. Are there any questions, concerns, or comments about pages 15 and 16, development services? That gets us to pages 17, 18, and 19, which is the police department. Just like every year, the police department is the largest line item, so to speak, in the general fund budget. It's one of those that, it's difficult to put a price on public safety, and just, an annual investment that we have to make to protect the safety of our citizens. The department has been operating on a pretty bare bones basis for the last several years. The budget reflects the department operating at full force for the first time in several years. And I'd like to point out, I think that there's been an increased boost in morale and pride and community spirit of that department. We have what is reflected in here, and I'm not sure if we've briefed every member of the council yet on it, but after much discussion with the chief of police, the proposal here does include the elimination, so to speak, of the helicopter that's maintained by the police department. It's certainly something that falls within the council's prerogative to approve, but that would save us approximately $40,000 a year that could go towards other purposes. Chief of the area, and he's here, but has been in contact with the Chief Carlton of the Columbus Police Department, and feels confident that we can do a mutual aid agreement with the City of Columbus as the helicopter was needed to send it up here. They're better positioned with the Air Force Base, and you've got different companies down there. They're better suited to maintain the helicopter on a yearly basis. We currently have an agreement with Columbus already on the bomb squad. We've seen our squads there whenever it's needed, and feel confident that we'll be able to have the same agreement for them to send the helicopter here is needed, and again, we have the aviation unit out at the airport that is the one that we've used, needed in the past.
So we won't have a helicopter that we have to maintain. What do we do with that?
Well, it's still out there right now, but pending the council
Oh, okay.
would be transferred to Columbia.
You kind of put it too long.
Yes, sir.
He goes back and loan back.
It was through, what was that program?
It's called 1033 program through the city surplus, office.
So we never owned it in the beginning. Oh, okay.
The surplus, they gave it to us, we maintained it.
So they give you some kind of quote if we have to, send for their help. Some kind of budget and cost.
No, what we're hoping to do is work out a mutual aid, which is taken care of through the EOD. So the chief would work out a mutual aid understanding with them.
Oh.
There are snacks back there.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Mayor, I'd like to ask, does this include a animal control officer? You know, that was recommended to us by the Humane Society.
It does not at this time. We were gonna wait till we got to community service and then.
Okay, very good.
We either, I don't have to do one or the other, then something we'll have to make a decision. Any other questions or concerns with the police? It is a very slight 0.1% reduction at the total budget, but I think that that's a little bit misleading, and the savings in the past were achieved by not filling all of the available positions for police officers, and Chief Gary has done a great job of remaining budget neutral while filling all those positions.
So, are you shortage of officers?
Yes, right now, I'm still a little short. Two officers.
Do you have some built in here to hire?
He's short, but they're not filled position. He has open positions. We don't have any new hires in there. But what he's talking about is open positions that you haven't filled, right?
So it's still included in the budget. So if we fill those, we won't increase the budget.
The process of looking into hiring those that we have not filled, because we do have three that has terminated their services that we have not replaced.
And the question Mr. Buddy asked about I know we're gonna get that later with that, those two will be including that person, that'll be an extra person that if we go that route.
It'd be an extra person if we go that route. Is it okay if we, Mayor, you want to save the discussion for then? Or we can discuss it now.
Yeah. It's the Humane Society requested additional money. They said basically that the city of Tupelo, either you do the animal control yourself or we need the additional money to continue providing that service. And, you're not just talking about dogs and cats, you're talking about girls and fairly recently ago.
But that money, we actually would be increasing in the money because we've already given them money, so we'll just transfer that money over.
It would be an
All of the
increase.
officers, we hire one.
$66,000 increase.
It will come out of that, but it will come out of what we already given them, right?
We have a separate animal control officer that is primarily, and Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's primarily dogs mainly.
Yes, Officer Holmes is an animal control officer, but he is a certified police officer. So whenever he is not taking dog calls, especially, vicious animal, calls. They need also, helping us out on the street. With patrol duty.
So if we had a new person, it's gonna be the same way.
We would have to get that, officer certified, and in order for him to be able to, write the citation, and in order to attend the certification classes for a, certified animal control officer.
It's a little different, and Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but the officer we have now primarily is, you know, if there's a vicious dog in the neighborhood or a dog that's on the loose, going and getting that dog. What the Humane Society is talking about is more than that. It's the, you know, the person calling with a snake in their house or a squirrel in their attic, or, I mean, it's kind of comical that we recently had to go.
Well, why are we going to get that? There's commercial pest control people that goes and gets the snakes and gets the coons and gets the squirrels. Well, I mean, if we're dealing with animals, we only should be dealing with domesticated animals and the rare goat dying, or, you know, or the cow downtown or something like that. But, you know, if we're going to get the snakes out of people's houses and stuff like that, that's why they have Terminex and Henderson Pest Control and all those guys.
Well, that's where animal control is saying that they are doing that, not the Tupelo Police Department. They're saying they're getting the calls for everything, all the.
Well, they just need to tell them to call somebody else and then deal with dogs and cats.
So you're exactly right. That's where we get into the complaints with the mayor's office, saying that police not doing the job, you know, for a contract, which are absolutely right. Those are tests, control from the next guy or your red test, I should have. But they're always calling the police or the animal control folks to come out with this kind of thing.
I've got one sitting on my desk right now with rats. So,
Still Terminex's number, did it?
no, we agree, and I think what we come down to is, the chief was concerned, Mayor, I'm sorry, because the chief and I just talked about today, and I just hadn't had a chance, but the chief came today and said he had some more reservations. When we asked him to start looking at it, what he thought, and he has a little bit of reservations about adding another officer and everything that would be required and the amount of coverage. And he gave me a sheet where it run roughly about 73, was it
71,000.
about 71,000. And the question then just becomes, do we want to go back to the Humane Society and offer them some assistance? They asked for 67. Do we offer them some and then make suggestions that they don't call on the squirrels in the attic and stuff? But the little old lady that's got the cat up the tree or something like that, those are the calls that they get all the time.
Well,
They met with us, and I like the plan that they submitted to us. Look like the Humane Society is having trouble getting what they need to get as far as their facility and all of this. And I would support the recommendation that they have made to get another officer and to let them concentrate on what their main duties are to work with those animals that they have there in the shelter and focus on their new building that they're trying to work on. That's what they have requested, and they get into it. It's such a big turnover, look like, when they have been getting all those control officers down there. Every time you look up, there's another person down there, and they're not getting anything done. So we get complaints about all kind of animals too. The councilman do dogs, cats. We haven't got any rats, but I thought they used to let the public works department have rats. They used to put out stuff to kill them. That's what they used to do. I guess they took it out of their area, but I would like to be supportive of their recommendation because they're trying to improve the quality of the Humane Society. It look like they just going in circles, they have been going in circles in the past.
Could I suggest this up, because I know it just caught us late in the game and we thought we were close. Could we go back, Mr. President, with your group that met with the Humane Society, and let's go back and talk to them and see if they would be willing to discuss maintaining some of that? Ms. Nettie, or we?
Yeah, I think they wanted hands off on it, but.
I talked to Nelson this morning, just after Bart had talked to him. So I think going back and talking to them would still be appropriate. We still have time to do that.
I was on that committee.
Well, I mean,
It wasn't a committee.
It wasn't a committee, it was just a group of people that came in there.
Yes, unlike Ms. Nettie, they made a very good case. The gentleman and Ms. Gerald made a very good case. And as a matter of fact, if you guys remember in the last annex meeting, the number one question was asked was animal control. So there is a lot of concern about that. So I think it'd be good to go back and speak to them and maybe even let them come to court counsel about those that didn't hear their case. You know, I think it was $66,000 or something like that. And like you said, Ms. Nettie, there's a lot of turnover, not a lot of professionalism with the guys that they're getting and all that. So I'm certainly in favor of and I support their recommendation, but certainly I think we need to get back with
Two, I heard what the chief was saying, you know, and I support both, but I don't want to impose that on the police department if they can't handle it, so I would recommend that they try to come up with something to have to, where we can talk to Humane Society about, because I wouldn't want to make a decision, say, yeah, y'all get them off, y'all take it, and you don't really make it work. So there needs to be some more discussion on y'all part, finding how you gonna handle that. But I don't have no clue. They didn't mean to say, yeah, I can give you one. Really.
Is that okay to get a committee?
Mayor Shelton, what about having 3 council members and then you appoint 3 members on the executive side, the chief or the police department as well, and have 6 people meet with them?
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
I was thinking about, we put some other, responsibilities on the police too, that code enforcement and that's been a lot of question too, whether we get adequate coverage on that code enforcement, policemen kind of turning in lines and things, I don't know. Is that a part of the police responsibility, you know, that's working an area to deal with code enforcement now? All of them are doing it, there's some of it.
In some sector form.
We'll get that set up. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns, or issues pertaining to the police department?
Yeah, man, you know, we were talking about today, all on the budget, remember we took all the vehicles out of this instead of capital budget, so that's one way, you know, when we get to that point, I want to have some questions about when we get to the capital on the vehicle.
We're gonna be just as good on the capital.
Okay.
Propose a 10% basic tax. It gets us page 20 and 21. The fire department, Chief Walker has done an outstanding job going line by line through the department and cutting costs where possible. Most of everyone here is aware, but the fire department is separate, distinct, and unique, even as compared to the police department. in that Chief Walker is required to keep 24 officers, firefighters on duty 24/7, 365. Those firefighters have to be on duty every hour of every day and have to, the fire department has got to have the capability of having 12 firefighters respond to any location in the city of Tupelo within 9 minutes of the initial call. They have their internal policy to shave the 9 minutes to 3 minutes and have the ability to respond anywhere in the city of Tupelo in 3 minutes of the call and have a over a 99% success rate in achieving their internal goal of responding to any call in the city within 3 minutes. Those require that is required. Would really affect every homeowner in the city or every property owner in the city. That requirement is to continue with the fire rating. Chief, what's our rating is 4, which affects every, virtually every family in the city, and that their insurance rates are impacted by that. So it's just imperative that we keep that high level of service with the fire department. But with that and with maintaining that high level of service, Chief Walker was able to achieve a 1.3% saving for the operation of the fire department. That reflected on pages 20 and 21. Are there any issues, Justice Sir?
I noticed a considerable change in professional services. Can you give me a rundown on how you did that? That was great.
Yes, sir. I went back to 2008 and looked at some of our workman's comp issues. Those claims were being paid out of professional services. And we went and with human resources and finance, and that is paid now. They go directly to workman's comp, and we're not able to pay that and make the reimbursement. So I was able
to every year I request a printout, which I know is confidential, of salaries. There's one question I want to ask. I don't understand how these salaries of the different department heads determine. I'm looking at all the things that Chief Walker does, and I'm looking at his salary, maybe compared to some others, and how do we go about computing these salaries? I know it's personnel, but I'm just looking at them. How we doing this? I'm just comparing salaries as we go along.
We sort of, our philosophy since I took office was to set that, kind of the base rate at 73. That's sort of the department head figure, but there's some higher and some lower than that already. You just kind of, the ones that have, two things, I guess you'd say, some are already higher and those were not changed. So if, somebody at the department head that their salary was $80,000, that didn't change. But the unfilled positions were the 73 range. So it's kind of, I don't know that there's a really set answer for that, but I did, and get the drawing the different ones, is hoping that everyone would be at least to that level. But there's not a a set requirement or a set scale that you have to pay a department head. The Stennis Institute, I think, is who does it, does a survey statewide and compiles the averages. So you can look at, the mayor of Tupelo's salary as compared to, the mayor of the 10 largest cities in the state. You can compare that.
I just know that I know you're not personnel, but I know like the government services, they started him off with just pretty good salary, was pretty high. And I just wondered if it compared to other areas of the state or what is the method of determining what those salaries are gonna be, or is it based on what the person who left before was getting or what?
Well, sort of a combination of all of the above. You know, you've got to look at the, you know, the average for that type of position, and you look at what the rate has been before, and then you have to look at what is it going to take to get a qualified person to take that job. You know, the legal counsel for the position, for example, is higher than what it would typically do a department head, but felt like that was what it would take to get somebody of that caliber to accept the job. So, you know, there's not just a hard and fast rule about that. You just have to kind of take all those factors and combine them together.
It's just a concern, I mean.
If we could skip to Kim was going to also, she was planning on having her as opener and closer. We'll do the revenue, and then the last two pages, page 29 and 30, deal with debt services on page 29 and other financing uses on page 30, which will get us all the way to the end of the budget. She just got a child that's got to go to the doctor.
What pay here?
Well, she's on monkey bar.
On monkey bars, I don't know that it happened to me.
No, I hope she's getting her cast off.
Oh, okay.
I hope.
My mother told me I had to go to the playground, but absolutely not get on the monkey bars, so I went and got immediately on the monkey bars and fell off and broke my arm.
She's been on the monkey bars one arm lately. I mean, somebody told me she was still going at it, so. On page 29, the debt service, I'll quickly go through those three items for you. We've budgeted $36,665. This is a Mississippi Development Bank loan. The only thing left that we are paying on is fire station number 3. That's the only item. We did 20 years on that, and that will be paid off in about 10 more years. So we should be through with that. The Cooper Tire loan, that's the cap loan. That was split 50-50. It was a $3 million loan. We're actually paying off 1.5. The county's paying off the other 1.5. We're paying that directly to MDA each month. That's a monthly payment. The last one you see is the airport MDA. That's also went through MDA, and that is for the old National Guard building. We're only in our, I believe, 3rd year on that, so we've got quite a ways to go. That's a 20-year note. So. But the last page, it is on page 30. I'll quickly go through what we have.
This is what we pay per month.
No, that's annual. That is annual. Oh. We pay it monthly, but that's the annual fee for us to make that payment. The airport loan for the National Guard building, that's actually, we pay that once a year, but it is that full amount. Also too, on the very last page, these are other financing uses. This is what we budgeted to transfer to other funds last year. You'll notice that we budgeted $3.5 million to temporarily loan the thoroughfare fund. We did not make any transfers for the thoroughfare fund. We're not predicted to need to make them a loan. They'll probably have all of their funding before they get to the point of running out of tax money. They'll probably have everything paid on the East Main enhancement project. We are budgeting the typical $615,120. That goes into a special revenue fund, policy and project fund. We contribute $615,120 to that, and the CBB contributes $1 million to that. That fund, that policy and project fund, is actually used to pay the debt on the policy, and we will pay the debt on the convention center, and it will also help with renovations, anything that's needed at the Coliseum, as well as, if they had a big show and there was a law, anything that they needed for operations like show loss or anything unexpected, we would pull it from this fund.
So they will have $1,615,000.
The Coliseum project fund
Yeah,
does.
yeah.
We don't transfer that to the Coliseum, it goes into a Coliseum project fund. Also too, you'll notice that we have got $1,481,429 budgeted to go to capital. The $446,429 that you see as part of that money is actually what we typically transfer to the capital project. We transferred a little more last year because we bumped up that millage by 2.5 mils and transferred a total of $1,518,750. But we are actually bumping that back down and only transferring 446. The additional money you see, the $1,035,000, to bring you to a total of $1,481,429. That additional $1,035,000 is coming out of the public works budget. And when you get to the public works budget, you'll see where we've actually pulled out what we typically spend on streets. We're leaving a little bit of money for the maintenance, but we're moving all of that to the capital project fund just to roll each year. He won't be on that deadline of got to do it between October 1 and September 30th. He can just still roll with this money. And so that's what we're planning on doing. And that's what will fund that in the capital project fund, not bonds, but actually a transfer from the general fund to pay for those street improvements. And I know that's been discussed at what amount and top 10 streets, but that's actually pulling that out of public works budget for that $1,035,000. Also, the last thing you see is $550,000. That is that 1.25 mils that we brought into the general fund for the specific purpose of paying the Azalea Garden purchase back to the municipal reserve. That's 1.25 mils that we're assigning to that. We hope to have that paid for in less than 4 years. But not knowing what the assessed value will do next year, because of the tornado damage, we, even though we figured on paying only $525,000 back, we left that at the 1.25, not knowing how much they would bring in next year.
I didn't get a quiz on that. Let's see, that gets us back to page 22 and 23, that would be public works.
We're still with fire, right?
There's no, anybody?
I just want to say one thing, and what's on my mind. The tornado, and this would be fire and police, it's not a better job they've done. I got first hand, hopefully we all did, how well y'all reacted. And I watched, I know a lot of stuff he had to do. I thought he was very professional in handling that. So I just want to say thank you.
Anyone want to take a break, or y'all just want to work through, and, or y'all want to take a 5-minute break?
I think that was a yes.
Okay.
I'm trying to see if Lynn can do it. I'm trying to see if Lynn can do that.
I don't know. Yeah, one of our cookies I do like.
Okay, yeah. Just one, all right. So I'm live streaming all of this on my blog for the Village Journal, so anybody can click on it and watch all of this. Listen to it.
I think we'll have everybody but Johnny know about it. Can't make it.
Had the chief said we would give
your office.
You just trying to get your own bell. Hey, Eric Rama. Yeah.
I've been nice this year.
That means pay for it next year. I think the budget is, that was. I don't know.
Kind of jury's getting out.
I'm just saying. I got no disagreement.
But you know.
No, I'm checking my section. Right now, my foot is qualified. But I'm checking another setting. I just brought me over.
Is his boss?
But I haven't copied it.
I have to make sure they do.
I stopped by.
I'm checking my section.
I've got a list. You got one, you should eat. Yeah.
We have someone call.
General populace of that area. Use that water. All this needs.
It's something low. They can't get it. Oh, I just got it. Yeah,
Been 6.5 now.
6.5?
They're almost done.
We really are.
Why is Mark last meeting? I'll go first.
I saw that.
What are y'all talking about?
So we did, mate.
No, that's
Appreciate you letting me
No, I was wondering.
I'm sorry.
I need to read you something that you do. This took place after the battle.
Maybe could I get I know they do it right, could I get a copy of the salaries, for the city of Tupelo? I would request, I'd like to look it over.
So this is like taking on these all the works that we talked about yesterday. Translate them there.
This is, that's about it, right? And this is a little excerpt of the Bible, which, to give you an idea. It's just like March. And this was the guy. Yeah. Small but but anyhow, I've got all that information. But there was an attack on the that group of Nazis out there. And I got this. The Nazis were up here. This thing lasted about 2 hours. Now it took place in May.
This is $500 a month, so you may have in 330, so that's the end of what's John. And we can do that. Two or three, I'm not sure.
I don't know if we have a ring announcer or a bell or a round, somebody walking around with a round two card, but we. There you go.
Let's
Let's go.
You want to be announced again?
Announce you this time. We have a department head with many talents. Let's see, we finished the fire department, and that gets us to pages 22 and 23, which are public works. This is a flip to it. We already did the one work session on capital. The public works budget, similar to city court, you'll see a large reduction in that department's budget, but it's a little bit, it's not a reduction in the services or anything pertaining to the department. The 16.5% is reflective of shifting much of the public works budget into the capital budget. For example, the overlay line 635-037, that line item alone is about around $1 million that will be shifted from the general fund budget to the capital budget. So while it's a big reduction in the department's general fund, it's not not reflective of a a huge cost savings or anything else for that. That shift, it's been a work in progress, and it particularly came out of last year's budget process where, through that process, there were many things that were particularly capital in nature, but were not reflected in the capital budget. So we're really trying to, separate the general fund, supply and services from things that are capital, such as overlay. So that's a big thing there on pages 22 and 23. We have, as far as personnel, we do two positions in public works, and that was, in the previous amendment to get the 1% raises and streamline the operations. But with that, are there any questions or concerns about public works or anything?
Just a couple.
Oh, yes, sir.
Sure. On your picking back up since the storm, debris, y'all pretty much back on track. Are y'all picking up any leftover debris from this tornado?
We're starting to, we're not getting back into the point areas. We directed yesterday that we are going to fix everything, and we've been working out some schedules and working from Saturday. Trying to get all the storms, but we already all areas done.
And y'all back on route on the regular? I like to check, what this salary was at.
Hey, I guess you was saying that, I mean, just repeat, but still with storm-related debris, they're still going to collect that, dispose of that in accordance with the FEMA and NEMA standards, and follow that protocol for that. That'll be tracked separately than the routine.
So they will be reimbursed. If it's in anything tornado related.
We are, we've got about 1,200 cubic yards identified that's been approved. We're going to go ahead, what we call through the forced accounts, and do it on the weekends and track it. There could be some stuff that's not eligible, but we would have to pick it up anyway. So we're going to try to keep getting money as long as we can.
Just one of those things, not a good answer. The cutoff date they gave us was July 26th, so we're going to continue to follow the protocol and submit the request for reimbursement.
Did I understand you say that we have a possibility of having to repay that 7.5% that we got from the, when we went to that?
Well, that's my understanding, that it's one of those that you ask different people, you get a different answer, but that was my understanding.
We're going to have to pay it back.
If there's the possibility of that.
And we're going to change the mind or what?
Well, it's again, it depends on how you ask.
Oh, yeah, we were there, it sounded like they were gonna pay it. But
Every indication we've gotten so far is that it's going to be paid. That's one of the reasons why they want us to stop under this 85 and 80% reimbursement, so they won't be exposed for that rest of it. But if every indication,
That is through the Hurricane Sandy Act. We signed up for that program when we first started the debris removal, and that's kind of the good is the 85% federal match to what should be 15% state match. But the flip side of that was the cutting it off on July 26th rather than what we should have had. Yeah, instead of 180 days, rather they did 90 days. But, we'll.
So should we be gearing up for another one down that top world? Because when I was with the budget, I was under the impression that was taken care of.
I mean, it should be, but.
It actually works in the state's favor. I do under Sandy than the other way, because it owes a 5% tax for that.
the money they sent us, they did it at 100%. FEMA sent them the 85, and they put in the 15, so we got 100% of that first EWC. So that's why, right now, everybody's talking that way.
Is there any other, anything public works related,
I wanted to ask, what, is this the other FEMA public works, cemetery that was damaged, heavily damaged?
as far as, what about
Bring them back up to par.
that, is that an insurance claim or is that under
It's under
it's under FEMA?
We just got procedures we've got to follow before we do anything. You can't do anything out there without getting a bunch of people to sign off on it.
The history archives, we have it for them guys involved. As far as the fence network, it will be replaced. The public works can do a lot more than that. The forward in particular, in the next year after you cover it, we'll follow. We got some great plans.
I know the one up behind the projects is heavily been damaged and the fencing was completely torn down and all the trees were destroyed. In fact, just about, it looked like, kind of a sitting out somewhere cemetery thing.
It falls under the public assistance, portion of the FEMA, the federal assistance, category.
I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's even or not.
But it is included in the, reimbursement. That gets us to, Parks and Recreation, pages 24 and 25. Like the other departments, Alan's done a really good job of finding savings where you can. Like every other department, they're being asked to do more with less, and responded by shaving 5.4% of the budget for the coming fiscal year, including a reduction in personnel expenses by 3.5%, which includes the elimination of one position. Since 2013, seen a reduction in approximately $300,000 in operation expenses for a reduction of $300,000 for Parks and Recreation, which I attribute to strong new leadership in that department there in Parks and Recreation.
Leadership. Is that
Only two people got that. I thought it was fun. Funny because it's true. But they've done a really good job there, and saving and reducing expenses. Some of that may be over the capital as well. But are there any questions or concerns? Or yes, sir.
Two real quick questions, and I see we reduced the food maintenance from 30,000 to 15,000. Is that going to be about a normal food maintenance per year, 15,000?
Are you in the quiet?
Oh, I'm in the wrong one. I'm sorry.
That's okay. You're all related. We can go ahead and
We'll wait till you
Yeah, I'm a baby bitch.
It'll be a good time to get there. We go to the Aquatic Center. Had numerous meets and some pretty big competitions there. I didn't know the actual number, but I want to say just about 15 different people. I talked to Amy the other day, and I failed to write it down on my notes I brought today. The gate numbers and attendance and membership. All of that's available to the council.
How many directors do we have over there at the Aquatic Center? Direct and assistant director.
You've got an actual director, and then you've got a pool manager, and then you've got, Barbara's job is a three full-time people.
The council comment over.
I just stated it wrong, I'm still in the park and recreation, I guess it's maintenance of grounds that I was concerned about.
Page 25.
Yeah, page 25 went from 30,015, so is that, like 15,000 is what you think is going to take care of that? And the second part of that would be the recreation service, that went from 3,000 to 13,000. I noticed that, the actual expenditures, just give me an explanation of that. This is, recreation services, 680020.
He's actually corrected my mistake. When we set up the budget for, Tupelo Aquatic, for the aquatic facility, we took with it part of the recreation money that was in Park and Rec, trying to balance it out, and I kind of overcompensated. Just like we missed utilities a little bit, so we pulled it out of Park and Rec and put it into aquatics. What we're doing here is we've got to go back in and put some services, because that's all things that we provide other than the swimming pool.
Okay.
It's kind of just balancing out those two budgets, trying to have separate budgets, and we missed a few items. Alex is trying to fix those for me.
So it is best to have two separate budgets like that.
I think for you to get a true picture of what that facility is costing you, since that's a that's $11 million facility, you want to know what it's doing. I think so. We not only track it with the income, but we also track it with the expense. So that way, as a council, you'll always know what the pools. If you remember, Mr. Jennings, like a few years ago when you had asked me, I wouldn't know what the expenses were for CC Augustus or City Pool. We just had a rough estimate. This way you know what the true costs are.
Well, now, and I guess I should ask from the beginning when we go through each one of those.
You miss
Do aquatic center, do you, the lady not here? Well, I guess my question would be, you have enough people to run $11 million facility, meet the need, I know they're gonna hire part-time people as they need them.
Right.
My question would be, do they have what they need to operate that?
We're going to be close because we've not operated a full year. So right now, we're under budget, but next year, there's a possibility we're going to run a lot tighter. So, but until we get a full year under our belt, we're not going to know. Because we didn't open the facility to the public till December.
And that was my, I guess I should ask the question to each one of you, and I'm going to ask it now. You don't have to answer, but, we want to balance the budget. I would see somebody hollering later on, so, we could do a little bit better service to the public if we had more help or whatever it may be. But I don't want to get to the point of citizens being cheated out of anything about this budget. So my decision is based on what y'all tell me that you need.
Well, the one thing that dictate what we spend is we're service related. The more services we provide, the more people that come to the pool, then the more service we have to provide. But there would be a reflection in our revenue also. So right now it's kind of a balance. So Amy and Alex are both doing a good job keeping an eye on it, but they may have to come back. If services pick up, we can only provide so much service unless we have to come back and ask for more part-time people. But they're running 7 days a week right now.
Should have another Tupelo Aqua Zumba class soon for everybody participating. there to showcase that facility. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns? There several pages there, 4 pages from 24 all the way to through 27 for Park and Recreation and the Aquatic Center.
I'm just curious, does the school system put anything into the, aquatic center? Right now? They do?
They went through the spot station last, they've got actually, they, and, ECS, and even more come in there, and they pay money to rent that facility out, to come in, to use lanes.
They pay no grounds on.
Yeah, they pay a fee.
Yeah.
It's not a high rent, but the school system pays directly for use of that facility. That's the only one that we actually charge them for.
That gets us to page 28, which is community services. Just a couple of highlights from community services, and there is the one issue that we'll work through with the committee that will be formed for the Humane Society issue. Or animal, not Humane Society issue, I guess you'd say animal control issue. You can go through there and see the different changes. One is increase for the Downtown Main Street Association, increase by $10,000 from $50,000 to $60,000 for the different activities that they conduct every year. The two other changes, in the past year, the Gardner Simmons and Alpha House both were closed, large part due to new regulations. They had each received $2,500 for utility assistance through community services. We have changed these two line items, which would be budget neutral, and provide that utility assistance to the Salvation Army and the Family Resource Center. So that public assistance would just go from two work funds to two others. As far as other changes,
Where's Gardner Simmons on here? Okay.
the GS there on line 645-017. Are there any? Yes, sir.
I had one. Okay, the home grant. This is just on a question. There's just no more money available in grant, in no work, it's a home grant. We just, is that ready that we start pursuing that? The home grant?
It's not here.
There's no funding available right now in the home grant department.
That's ready, we're not pursuing that?
Correct.
Is there any way we can find out when will it be?
Shane, I know Shane and I briefly discussed it, and he was talking about doing some more investigation, but that's because we were talking about maybe reallocating a person up there. So yes, sir, I'll get you an answer, I'll get Shane to get us an answer.
Oh, just, first, I would like, that was a great program, I mean.
That was a state funded.
Correct.
Yeah, it's not.
Will y'all explain that to us better?
I don't think I do it justice. It was a grants program where you could participate with other communities, and they would get these funds, and then they would allow you to go in and buy first-time homes with it. And I'm not going to do the program justice, but that's about as much as I can explain about it. So,
Now, part, I think one of the is, you apply for that $7,000 grant.
yeah, it's a $7,000.
Remodel, you could do, seniors and things.
Correct. That was
a $5,000 grant.
That's a different.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
But I can't do that with justice. It's one now.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit that I know about it. The senior citizen, anybody handicapped could apply for that $5,000. to do the handicap accessible in the house, it could be a bathroom, or whatever that $5,000 would cover. I think Peggy was operating that.
Peggy was running.
Make sure they qualify, and they were applying, and it helped a lot of people out that really couldn't afford it. It was a great program.
Is that law change?
No, they don't have anything to do with it.
Okay.
Is the word changes, not gonna be included this year, I don't see it on the word changes, program. That is a very helpful program for senior citizens and,
Was it on there last year, Ms. Gill? I didn't see it.
it was on, because I was make sure we put it on there last
Yeah,
year.
it was on there last year. Yeah.
That is a great program.
Yeah,
They just, finished up.
Because normally she lists anything that was on there for the last 3 years is listed.
Word changes, don't have to call Mac and I both, checked on it to make sure we provided so much. Well, I think it pays for the materials.
Kim will be back, we can ask her.
Would that be the neighborhood 680025? Would that be?
Well, now, let's neighborhood grant.
That's
All right,
from
this-
neighborhood association that,
I think they had $10,000 in that last year.
we did.
She's, if she does, I just have to find out how she gets this.
Yeah, it should have been somewhere, because, like we, I mean.
Some kind of way,
They just finished up.
we are asking
Did a whole
our
lot of work.
citizens to upgrade their, homes and things, some of them are having problems bringing them up. It should be some fund somewhere to help these people who are on a fixed income and some kind of way we need to pursue, getting a grant, some kind of grants to help people who are in need with their homes. We're kind of putting pressure on the back code enforcement, and some of them not able to
Right.
bring those houses up to standard because they lend it.
We'll find out about that, that should have been in there.
Okay, Mayor, education pass, I guess it's, 680101. We had 5,000 in it for this year, didn't use any, and then we budgeted 5,000 again.
Which one?
1, 2, 3, 4, fifth one from the bottom.
6801.
680101.
101. Fifth one from the bottom. But we had 5,000 for 2014, didn't use any, and then we're budgeting 5,000 again for 2015. And
Education task, what is that?
Now, I don't know when, that is for, as I understand, the task force that Mayor Reed set up, and they've done several programs, I don't know.
Well, they had money in CDF is where they've been taking the money from right now. This money was set aside, but they never pulled from it because they had funding in the CDF. But you are right, because the gentleman that wrote Forrest Gump is coming to the library.
That reading program and all of that. Tupelo Read. Yeah, Tupelo Read.
They're gonna do 5K called Run Forest Run, like everything. It's pretty.
What about the History Society? I mean, it's got,
yeah, that was my next
That
it's
question.
was,
got 5,000 in it, and then it's $100 last year.
And they
That
didn't
was-
start,
That
they
was,
didn't spend none in
that was,
2013.
Well, that was something they requested last year, and the council gave it to them, but I don't really know about the expenditures, they haven't spent anything.
I don't, as far as their, that was, Miss Dees came on behalf of the Historical Preservation Society and made their request, and I don't have much of it.
There's going to be a meeting tomorrow, you want me to check on that, or?
But if you bring it up, they'll spend it.
So you're saying since you can make a request?
That's $10,000.
I guarantee you, because that George got an eye on it. And, move it. Yes, I asked only if it's utilized with the staff,
They use 100, so we
Right.
leave them a call. But that didn't work.
let, Mr. Palmer check on that.
I'll check on that.
I feel certain oil changes is included in some part of the budget. I mean, last year was not the first year.
It's been going on for a long period of time.
What we talked about last year was actually increasing the amount. And it was, it's not we didn't, as I can recall, didn't talk about adding to the budget, but about increasing the amount. But I don't,
They benefit a lot of people. That's all they for the little money.
You'll see the, last line there, 680,111, $3,395,503. That's, pertaining to the storm there, and, we have to deal with the FEMA and the other issues that we talked about.
Is that 12.5%?
That was the first TW that we wrote, and that's when we received half of it.
Half of it.
We received half of that at 100%.
Oh, okay. Plus, you got the other half, it's gonna be more other than that.
Yes, sir, we will file more PWs.
Oh.
This is just the city's first PW that we filed.
Oh.
Doesn't, of course, water and lights its own, but we still got some more that we have to file.
PW stands for Project Worksheet.
Project Worksheet.
I don't know why that term resonates. Something else, but that's what you have to submit for the funding request.
Where does the, quality of life, fund, where does it fall in the budget, what does it come upon?
It's Sherry Cochran.
It's a revenue fund, and it's managed through, developmental services through Sherry Cochran.
I would like for us to, go back and look at the quality of life fund, because, some of the things when we first started out, not move that way, and they're taking this out, citizens, life bill, this, fund is coming from that. You need to evaluate that particular fund.
That gets us, friends, to page 30, which Kim has already explained, and Councilman Palmer, were you going to do the recap, page 29 and 30?
Y'all got about hour and a half.
But that gets us to page 30 with the general fund supplies and services budget. We've got Coliseum and CPB here to do a presentation. But if we'll go all the way to the last line of page 30, before the grand total, you'll see that what we presented reflects a budget surplus for 2015 of $152,370. That is before the animal control issues. So depending on what we decide, that'll cause a reduction in that surplus, whatever extent, or whatever we can refund there. But with that, one thing we talked about right at the very beginning, Councilor Palmer discussed the retirement fund for the officers. It is my request and suggestion, I guess you'd say, that we do go with the option, the third option on the sheet there that presented the minimum of $750 plus a 3% across the board increase that would leave the millage rate and the tax rate the same at 1.68 mills. It would require 1.65 of those mills. The other 0.03 mill would just roll over to the general fund The second sheet there, you see 5 people in that retirement fund would go from $396 a month to $750 a month.
What sheet you looking on?
This is the handout.
Oh.
It would take 5 of our retirees from $396 to $750 a month, and the rest would all get a 3% raise. So just $30 per 1,000 to draw. The highest would be, it's like one person draws 22 people draw a little over $2,100. You're talking about a little over $60 a month for those two, and then but is that everyone okay with that? That leaves the tax rate the same, and provides a benefit for them.
Here, do you recall what this, Kim said that increase, how much that constitutes? It's about $65,000.
$60,000 or $65,000, and that's basically the result of the annexation. That Wanda be able to do that increase without changing the tax rate or the allocation of meals. Okay, I don't know, Arena or CVB, we want to draw strong.
Mayor, I'd like to thank you for giving strong consideration to the police and police and fire home.
Yes,
because that has been something that we've been dealing with for a long time. It looks like we accomplished over this time, so you probably get good credits for that as a mayor. Because they have been to us periodically and asked for help, and it's like they get more support than they ever have.
Thank you.
We typically go at the same time.
Handle presentations. We need we can drop the lights and do another.
You have any way you want to present it, you can go line by line.
What are you? Does everyone have a time? Ladies and gentlemen, I came to a Shane Cooper, but honor and privilege to present to you Mr. Neil McCoy, Director of the Convention Business Bureau. That's good.
Cut the lights off, we thought we were gonna see this big muscle bound guy come out.
Could have worn a suit, I guess. Chief, you had a wrong row yesterday, I'll be glad to answer any questions, however y'all want to go about this. If you want, we can start on the front page with our revenue. The top line is the anticipated revenue from tourism tax, and just kind of those of you that may or may not remember, when we come up with our projected revenue for fiscal year 15 is we take the actuals through the most current month received, which is August, July, so we still have August and September left to go. So what we did is we took last year's actuals and plugged them in. It's 10 months of actuals for fiscal year 14, and then the actuals for the last 2 months of fiscal year 13. So we don't project an increase, we just project flat revenues. The North Mississippi Medical Center doesn't in lieu of from their sales and their cafeteria, and so they did a 2% in lieu of, which was I think this year is $53,000, so we just project that at $50,000. Of course, all of the interest we're getting from money receiving the bank account, I think $3,500. So that brings us to our total revenue of $3,891,000. what we do first, before we do anything else, is we take out our fixed commitments, which is the $1 million that we do towards the Bancorp South Carolina, and then also the $103,000 that we have for the renovation of the city building a couple of years ago. So our fixed commitments are $1,103,000. So we back that out of our revenue, and so we start the budget process with $2,788,000. Very last few numbers there basically shows we're going to ask to go into our reserve account $286,000 to balance our budget. We have a budget of $3,075,000 for fiscal year. Questions on revenues and how we arrive at the numbers on the cover sheet. We can go over to the next page and we can go through this any number of ways, but just to make sure you know what you're looking at. I know you've looked at a lot of numbers and kind of trying to make it all make sense. Far left-hand column is the line item number with a couple word description of that line item. Then the next column is what we had budgeted in fiscal year 14. The next column is the balance as of August the 6th. And then the next column is what we're asking for fiscal year 15. The far right-hand column is the difference between those, between fiscal year 14 and fiscal year 15. What I'd like to do is come down through here and just address the ones where there's a significant either increase or decrease, and certainly be glad to answer any questions y'all may have. That is a few present front. All right. First thing is on the postage, we have seen certainly a big increase in our lead requests through an advertising campaign we've been running. We anticipate that will carry over. In other words, somebody sees our ads and they tell us they want more information on Tupelo, then we then have to send them out through postage and through some advertising and marketing we've done. Our lead requests have gone up 33% since February. Now that we have those leads in our database, our postage needs are going to increase. Travel, we've asked for an increase in travel for two reasons. One is that we have a new staff member that we will put on the road selling, so she will be traveling on average about once a month, attending trade shows. And the other reason for that is that you'll hear this recurring theme throughout this budget presentation, is that next year, 2015, will be the 80th anniversary of Elvis's his 80th birthday year. And so there's a lot of events and PR opportunities wrapped around that significant 5-year incremental birthday. And in paid media, that's the biggest swing in this budget, is in that paid media line item. A lot of that has to do with that Elvis 80th anniversary year. Also, part of that is a transfer from, and you'll see it on the next page, from our sports development line item. We had been doing some paid advertising through Ole Miss and Mississippi State sports properties, that we are actually transferring that from the sports line item into our paid media, because that's what it is. It's a paid media contract that we do. So that's just a transfer of funds, and you'll see that reflected in the sports budget. Coming down, the next line item that's got an increase is in research. And what we're doing is we're going to go into our top 3 feeder markets and do focus groups and find out from them what are they doing on weekend travel, and how are they getting, what mediums are inspiring them to travel, and then finding out their views of Tupelo and if they would come visit. So we've got some focus group studies we want to do in our feeder markets, as well as doing a new hotel analysis. Last time we did this was 2011. I think you all realized that our landscape of our hotels have changed quite a bit, not only since April, but since 2011. We've had quite a bit in the market. Coming down on the next page, in our capital outlay, we're requesting, the reason it's an increase is we're going to ask for a new shuttle bus. We currently have a 14-passenger shuttle bus, and we would like to get a second shuttle bus. We'll keep the one we have now. It's fine, it's just that it limits us how many people we can move around. What we would like to get is a 28 passenger bus. So this will give us the ability to move around 40 people at one time. And Ms. Davis can tell you, she's worked with us on trying to land some conventions, and that always seems to be a sticking point with some of our meeting planners is transporting them from hotels to off-site functions. And so we think this will give us another feather in our cap or another reason to help book business to come to Tupelo. The next line item, you can see that's where we had that reflected change in transferring the money out of the sports line item into our paid media line item. Then you'll see meetings and motor coaches are basically a wash on each other. And then our leisure sales, this is the one where I told you we have a salesperson out traveling. This is for the first time we've ever done this. We're actually going to have somebody working leisure shows. So we'll have somebody going to women's shows in our feeder markets like Nashville, Birmingham, and Memphis, and we're promoting weekend giveaways to Tupelo for the family or for girlfriends or for couples to kind of giveaways to Tupelo, and also working military shows. Military shows are a great opportunity for us to promote to Tupelo. Y'all know we have a great military museum and just some opportunities there that we need to take advantage of. Salaries we left flat, no increase in our salaries this year. Coming down, our cultural heritage markers, we're decreasing that program as we have placed numerous markers. That program will start to fade off in the placement of markers, and we'll just transfer it over to a working program of just advertising that trail and what all goes with it. You can see we zeroed out some line items because they were in last year's budget. Then you've got Elvis 2015. As I mentioned, we've got some PR opportunities with that. With the New York picnic, the Mississippi picnic in Central Park has already told us they're going to theme their picnic in 2015 around Elvis, so there'll be some good PR opportunities with us. The Mississippi Development Authority has inquired about us partnering with them on a Grammy event in LA celebrating Elvis's Grammy Awards prior to the Grammys this year. So some good opportunities that don't come around very often, and you got to take advantage of them when you have that opportunity.
You did get on that bus and go out there?
I think that would be a long drive. Yeah. And then coming down the next, in the last few columns there, the Vietnam Veterans Wall, you all have heard me say this, we have that $25,000 ready to transfer that money. When they are shovel ready on that project, we will transfer that money, and that will continue to carry over until they're ready on that project. Yes, sir.
Let me interject. September 20th, I believe Councilman Palmer was going to be their MC, but they're going to have activities out at Veterans Park. There will be a fundraiser for the Vietnam Memorial Wall. That will be, they'll have the helicopters that are shipped to the airport over there for the Pedal for Patriots event. It'll be, should be really nice out there on that.
That's the weekend for our heroes. And that weekend for your heroes is part of our big sponsorship program. So we've helped them with some marketing and assisted them with some knowledge this year. And then the last item, which is probably our biggest line item expense, our new line item expense, the Wayfair Wayfinding program. What we would like to do is update our entryway signs to the city, as well as creating directional signage to our points of interest, including our shopping districts, downtown, Barnes Crossing, as well as our major parks, our regional parks, our Ballard Park, and those parks that draw in guests from out of town, and other attractions. City Hall and some of those things would be noted for people to help move around in the city. That's something that I think is long overdue for us. And we have begun some initial conversations with Starkville. We just went through this process and worked with NDOT. We've got some good best practices for us to kind of carry over for us.
What sign What sign are you gonna use coming in for?
But that hasn't been decided, that hasn't even been discussed, or we'll get into that, but we get into that program.
Council will be involved in that process.
Sure.
You're replacing some of the signs before the annexation to, some of the signs, are they going to be replaced?
I don't know that, I think we're just talking about those brick, backlit signs that I think there's probably, Chuck, you know how many there is, it 4 or 5 colors? Yeah, so it's just those signs, we're not talking about the green, we're talking about the nice brick.
That's what I'm talking about, those, all the signs that have been put up on the old signs, still Tupelo, that old logo on.
Yes, ma'am, I'm not sure, you know, with the look and all that, we'll get into that when we get into the program. We haven't made any kind of decisions about the look.
So there's no funding for, Elvis Presley Memorial Foundation?
No, sir, not this year.
Does Henry know that?
Yes, sir.
So you said, I'm sorry, I missed, I've heard it before, but I was going to ask you a question, if we get some money out of travel and put in ours, if we represent the city, like y'all represent the city out at 2%, if we needed it,
We have.
that would be only if we needed it.
We have traveled with, city council members before, and we have covered those expenses.
No, I'm not talking about it, y'all go with us, I'm saying if we go, we need some travel.
I think it would need to be something related to, the mission of CBD. And also if we were going, there was an incident where, say, no one from CBD was going to a trade show to recruit them, kind of Tupelo, but a council member wanted to go to that trade show to recruit them to come to Tupelo. You know, say if you're going to some sort of trade show for the purpose of recruiting that trade show to come back to Tupelo, I think that would be a, I don't think that, just going to the League of Cities conference, I think that's something we have to probably,
But we couldn't just ask for funding out of that right now, and put it in the money.
and I think, I don't think.
Like we've done the other money that we asked for, that you like the Elvis Presley and
Those are no means interject, but, and we had a little bit of an issue, you know, about that, when we did that budget amendment, but, those line items are specifically designed to bring people to Tupelo. Like the, you know, Elvis Presley or the Veterans Wall, or, you know, those things are specifically designed to get, visitor visitors to the city of Tupelo. So, you're not, you know, you couldn't, just say I want, 5,000 CBD because we want to put something in the mayor's office or put something here at City Hall. But I suppose we want to do flash and marquee something outside, so, you know.
I guess I was thinking that we could request that he put something in the general fund. But maybe I was just thinking, it's just a question,
There, and that's why it's separate there. That's the restaurant hotel tax that, you know, on city fees for the statutory purposes and the, you know, ordinances of Tupelo for that revenue has to go towards those that. And
Almost part of the council has gone to, like Virginia Beach, and two weeks from the council, and then I believe they gave a contribution on the All-American City, trip to, Kansas City. But those were kind of geared toward tourism and helping our city to become another All-American city. Which was their mind.
Council James,
CBB can pay for travel for council member, but if I may just be misunderstanding, I don't think it would be.
Right, I don't think it's something that we need to get in practice of spending those travel dollars for mayor or for national meeting cities. It needs to be for tourism related purposes.
Okay, I mean, I thought it would work promote the city. I mean, I'm just asking. And we can talk about that later.
Yes.
I have a question. On the salary, anyone get a raise? Any increase? Did you do away with any position and then transfer part of that salary to anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think so. Johnny and Ben are probably not back from Jackson.
From those two, like,
I think that
what,
was
baby?
Don't be the best one right here.
say the best part.
Sorry.
Y'all have? This is, it's, really similar to what we did this past year. I can go over it in detail. If you like, right, let's do the big picture. The important thing to you guys is the amount from the city's general operating budget remains flat as it's been for the last 15 and 16 years or so. That's that 275, 830. You see at the bottom of the revenue, it says transfer from other funds. Everything else you see on here is our best guess and estimate. We're totaling about a 1% increase over last year's numbers. And that's really it. We've got some minor increases in some columns that get us to that 1%. But, we are, as y'all know, we're a revenue generating entity. We have to generate the revenue in order to spend it on the bottom line. So if we don't generate it, we don't spend it. That's kind of the way it works. One of the things I thought I would point out is that amount from the city, the dollar amount stayed flat, but it's actually gone from 11% of our budget in 2006 to 5% of our budget now. So we've been able to grow without coming to you guys and asking for more money, which I'm proud of that fact. I don't know anything about flying, so I don't want to touch that.
You'll be okay.
I'm happy doing entertainment. If I can figure out a way to do a concert at the airport, I'd be happy to look at it.
Make that work.
This is a big expanse. We could probably put a lot of people in.
I just park on a plane, I know, like a lot of folks on the
There we go. So that's it. I mean, there's a slight increase in the revenue. Like I said, it's a 1% increase from last year. And then a 1% increase in expenses to match that. It's pretty straightforward. I should point out, we haven't quite finished the fiscal year yet, as y'all know, but we've already set an attendance record. We're the third year in a row we've broken the record that we've set. So we're excited about that. We should get over 300,000 people through our doors this year. Never done before. Things are going pretty good for us. We're keeping it that way for the next year.
Is the Banco South Conference Center providing some extra revenue? It seems like it's being utilized pretty much.
We're keeping it busy. We've actually seen a slight dip right around this time of year from where we were last year, and that's related to the change in management. We knew when we took it over and there was this period of uncertainty that we'd see that effect about 12 to 18 months down the road, and that's where we are. Our numbers projected out for the next 12 to 18 months, we picked that right back up. Now that we have have some consistency. As far as the conference center,
we're breaking even there. We're not generating a lot of excess revenue for us, but we are breaking even. And our mission really is to, much like CPB, is to bring people to town and help the quality of life. We're able to do that at that facility. I know in the Capitol, there's some discussion about possible expansion where we can connect those two facilities. I was told we're here to discuss operating, but I'm here for that.
I have a question about, salary. Did anyone get a raise, or did you shuffle around, somebody leave, did somebody get a bump?
We haven't done anything, since the city had their adjustment back in February, I guess it was. And the commission hasn't discussed doing anything for the coming year. But nobody, we haven't lost anybody, we haven't adjusted anybody's salary, everything is still, as it was. Correct.
Other than these people being helpful, to utilize something.
We do. We've got 3 of those working for us right now, and they're helping us out just with general cleaning and things like that. We've been able to go around to all of the 6,007 seats we have in the upper deck and give them some individual cleaning that we wouldn't have time to do with our regular staff. So that's just an upcall. Overall's another 1,780 seats being out there. Thank you all.
Your cutback on, I know this is not expected on the summer, there's a lot of people not providing complimentary tickets to the council. A lot of the people that are coming in now.
It depends. That's strictly determined by, well, it's determined by the act, is who decides it, but our capacity plays a big role in that. We do these smaller theater-sized acts. As a general rule, we get 1% of the tickets that are out there. So when we do a capacity of 1,800 seats, that gives us 18 tickets, which doesn't take care of everybody we need to take care of. When we do Disney on Ice or the circus, and we've got 7 shows, we're able to take care of all. So it's a factor of the artists and the people that rent the building from us. It's not, if it was our decision, we take care of all of the shows.
Thank you.
I think that's it, unless there's anything,
No, we need to discuss that.
We need to discuss tomorrow.
The only person we have left is Johnny and Capital.
and we'll be ready to make some sort of presentation on legal counsel position as well.
Will you be ready for Capital tomorrow?
I don't know, I can't get a hold of Lynn, he's traveling right now. So, and Johnny, there's no hurry if you,
Do we do the capital on them? Sign it?
yes, sir. Capital, we just got a little tweaking to do, and Kim, I didn't quite understand what she sent out about work chambers, but she's got a place in there where what we do.
The only,
Yeah, that's what was his NBC. Yeah.
the only other thing that wanted to mention and invite everybody, I thought after this, or sometime next week, the deadline to qualify for the Board of Brief position is the 15th, which is right. Sometime next week, after Friday, and after see who has qualified for that position, inviting every candidate that has qualified to some sort of presentation or overview of the budget. Not this detailed, not this long, but to sort of begin the process of making sure that whoever wins on September 4th will have at least some working knowledge of the budget and have some sort of input. You don't need to be able to discuss it in the campaign or whatever they want to do, but have some familiarity with that. I didn't know if that's something that everybody wanted to participate in or had any thoughts on that. But I wanted to invite them all. it's one set time for every, I don't know how many candidates set at 5. All 5 candidates coming in and get the same presentation and the same opportunity to ask questions.
Hey, Chief, Mayor, we're gonna set up a meeting at the Humane Society and bring that back.
You have a, I mean, it doesn't,
I'll
spot.
do that.
The roads between people. Okay, Mayor, back to tomorrow. We've got, Johnny and Capital. I know it's not gonna take 1 to 6 to do it. Council, I mean, what, do y'all wanna come later? 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock. Change it to 4. Can we get those two done? Anything else?
I think so.
Our study, is that gonna run into today?
Yeah, tomorrow.
I mean, I'm it may be here.
Yeah, that way for, so 3 to 5, 3 more, and either Johnny.
We weren't gonna bring any of the other department heads back, just Johnny and, well, if we do capital, we'll bring the affected accounts back.
We're gonna time to do capital in 2 hours.
But you don't know for sure you're gonna have it. What if we?
Can we start at 3 and then go, I'm sorry, Willie, can we start at 3 and then go longer than 2?
It's certainly fine with me. I'm already planning to be here from 1 to 6, but it's just.
What would you know about capital?
Lynn's on the road, and I said I can talk to him to see how close he is.
Okay.
I may know something later today.
I was gonna suggest, if you found out if you could do capital tomorrow, maybe we could do, I mean, at 2. If you were, what, I mean, great.
I like to text everybody when I
Yeah, I plan on.
It's just good, though.
We want to start at 1 and then we finish.
But what I'm saying, if it ain't the capital,
Start 1 and finish early. Start at 1 and finish early and have capital ready.
That's what I plan on.
Have some leftovers in.
Yeah, so I'm gonna change the notice is out from 1 to 6.
Okay, that's very good. Johnny and capital start at 1 and we will get it done.
Departments that are affected, you'll be here.
so once we do that, just say, if we done all of that tomorrow, what's the next step? We're through.
Hey,
So we can vote on it by next council meeting.
Robbie, you use hashtag get her done.
You may not have all the time.
Brenda, I'm saying that, I was trying to get out of,
I'll make
special
sure.
hall.
Talking about it in the future.
No, once we get through everything tomorrow, but you have been running right up to the deadline, let's call me.
Well, now, that's, we got September 15th, but the election, the council election September 4th, and then it would be, I think we figured the 12th.
We're gonna meet on the 2nd and the 16th right now.
It must be 7
So we should have it ready by the September.
We would have
The budget would be ready, but we'll be missing a council member.
I think a house special meeting to come in and approve the budget and be done with it, I think we gotta do it with this guy. But
The board group.
Oh, I keep forgetting council.
it's not gonna take 20 minutes.
All right.
We'll figure it out tomorrow, 1 o'clock tomorrow.
We're gonna talk tomorrow.
Thank you.
Hey, John, did you get the three council members over at your name?